Hello everyone, this week we have got something of a special on really. You see, I've been invited to come to the north of England by the lovely people at John Ashley Sports Cars. They are specialists in the weird and the wonderful. And as you all know, that's something I always love to talk about. We're starting off with something that might be seemingly on the ordinary side, but I assure you is actually quite special. It's this, a Mercedes SL60, a fairly late example too, this car from about 1998. Under the bonnet is a 6-litre V8 produced by the good people at AMG, and this is one of the first cars made after AMG had been taken over by Daimler-Benz. But the truth is, I'm not a Mercedes expert. I am slowly beginning to like them thanks to my exposure to some pretty decent Mercs. If you haven't seen those videos, please do go check them out. So what I'm going to do for the walk around is I'm instead going to hand you over to somebody that, according to his very Pistonheads username, loves his Mercs. My buddy, Darren.
Well, thank you, James, for handing over to me. As you may have seen already on James's channel, he did a video on my E320 Coupe, and this shares some parts with it. Brakes and wheel hubs and bits and bobs like that. But I am overjoyed that the owner was able to let me have a little go in this because I absolutely adore the SL60. This particular car, it has a later interior from the rarefied Silver Arrows model that was a run out. The last 100 or so cars in the UK, the 500s, received this very interior, and a previous owner has actually installed it in this car and it looks wonderful. We up front have the 6-litre M119 32 valve engine, produces 380 horsepower. Now I do this because at the time Mercedes produced the V12 SL600. Mercedes didn't want the lesser V8 to be more powerful on paper than their flagship 600. The SL600 with its 6-litre V12 produced 389 horsepower. So AMG were a bit creative and just said 380. In all reality, these engines are known to produce over 400 horsepower. You could actually get this more powerful SL60 for a little bit less. However, the owner has the original bill of sale and it was still some £98,500 in 1998. That is a shed load of cash. But look what you got for it. Something very, very rare. A reported 49 right-hand drive cars were ever produced. And just look at it. It's phenomenal. And I love it. So that's enough nerdy knowledge from me. I shall now take early retirement and hand back to the wonderful JayEmm.
I'm back and we're out driving. And if I was going to use one word to describe this car, it would be big. If I was going to use another word to describe this car, it would be majestic. This thing is awesome. Now I'm only pootling along here, just tickling that massive V8, and it's just such a wonderful place to be. You got a nice view of that big old bonnet there. The whole thing feels like it's been hewn from a solid lump of metal, and it's just oozing a bit of Germanic cool, really. I know a lot of modern Euro cars can be just somewhat indifferent, but this is not. This is such a nice place to be, and now the weather's not as nice as it has been last week, but I just don't care. This thing is wonderful. Now I know, and as Darren probably will have mentioned to you in the walk around, these were really expensive cars back in the day, and it might not look like it from the outside, but from in here it really feels it. I've driven several Ferraris of the period, and this is considerably nicer inside and much better put together. You have to remember that at this point in time, your Italian supercar interiors were just a bit, they were still quite flimsy and, well, a bit cheap feeling. This thing, though, does feel utterly solid. It's really quite wonderful. And as for that engine and this allegedly conservative power figure, let's find out. Well, you got to put your foot all the way to the floor, and it's quite reluctant actually to change down. I'm going to slow down again and try that again, because you've got a very long throttle pedal. Oh, it does move. It does move. It takes a little while to get into its stride, but it actually does quite like revving out. I mean, the red line in this is a lowly 6,000 RPM, but what a thing. Now, it's a bit soft and wallowy, but it is, of course, very comfortable. And you see, the thing is, sometimes I would complain about that in a car, but with an SL, soft is, I think, what I want. I want a car that's supremely comfy. This car, for example, was purchased by a doctor. You see, you've got to think, who's going to drop £100,000 on what is ultimately a Merc? Because I compare these with a Ferrari at the time because they were as expensive as a Ferrari at the time. You could have bought a new 355 for the same money that Mercedes were asking for this, and of course you might look at it now and go, why'd you do that? But if you're the sort of person that just wants a big slice of luxury, this is it. And that engine is just buttery smooth. Now, I've been advised against using the shifter to manually choose gears because it can be a little bit finicky, but the handling's actually not too bad. The steering's got a pretty pleasant weight to it, and you do have this constant sense of the fact that you are in a very big, heavy car. Now, there's lots of nice features in here as well, and we've got up the little retractable kind of wind jammer in the back. I honestly have no idea why they put little back seats in these things, because I just do not see the point. But for a place to be in, this is rather mighty. This is indeed the kind of car I'd expect a powerfully built company director to have. Now, I have to confess something. This is not the first time that I ever drove an SL. I have driven one before. It was one a couple of generations old. I don't know the chassis codes very well. I believe it's about a 2008, 2009 car. But it was an SL320. And I got in that car, I drove it. My dad was thinking of buying it. And I drove it, and I just came out of it at the end thinking, why? That was a car just geared up for old people. Everything was soft and light and woolly, and it wasn't very quick at all because it's a very heavy car with no power. This, though, I come out of this and I go, I know why. This is the sort of car that you know how much power it's got. Maybe somebody else does. Most people don't. We were following it to the location to drive, and nobody bats an eyelid about this car. Nobody really knows what it is. Nobody really cares. Except Darren. He's having a little mangasm all morning looking at this thing. But driving this, I totally get it. I mean, I hate the notion, I really do, of me becoming a Merc fan. Because, well, I've never been, ever. There's only one Merc. If you asked me 10 years ago, there's only one Mercedes that even, raised a flutter in my heart, and it's not just from having a lot of burgers, and that was the old, I think it's the CLK DTM AMG, because that's mega cool. Unfortunately, they're also extortionate money. This thing, though, I drive this, I'd never own one. I'd never have one of these, because I just don't look at it and want it. But now, having driven it, I get it. I really get it. I guess I've just been lucky. I've driven a lot of nice Mercs, and this one is actually different to all the others, but what a machine. You need to stamp on the brakes quite hard if you want it to stop. It's a big old boat, but oh, she sounds good in the process. Oh, this is not a bad start to the week. I hope you guys enjoy what we've got coming up, because believe me, I know Darren will disagree with me, but this is perhaps the most ordinary thing we're driving this week.
No, it's not.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.